This is Michael Vera with Late Night in the Midlands. How are you?
Well, hello there.
It is great to have you back on the show tonight. I'm looking forward to talking with you, and so I hope you're ready to go.
I am ready to go. Let me just turn off my cell phone so it doesn't ring on us while we're talking.
All right, sounds good. So, Augie, I'm thinking let's start with a little bit of background. What got you? And I ask all my guests this because I like to know what got you so interested in consciousness and the paranormal and this whole topic, this whole other realm.
Well, I'm not really sure. I think it was something that was embedded in me when I was born. I don't know any other way why I should really have been gone after this so much, because I started as a young kid. You know, I devoured books about the all the stuff that was outside of the box, paranormal, UFOs, and things like that. And when I was about 11, 12 years old, I built a small UFO detector that I made work, and I started messing around with things like that. And of course, you know, I grew up in Norway, so we were a little more free to think than probably many other countries in the world.
Sure.
So just because I was outside of the box so far, I wasn't really shunned and I wasn't talked down to because of that, so that kind of encouraged me a little bit.
Well, good.
And, yeah.
Oh, no, go ahead. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt. I'm just saying.
That's all right. That's all right. At the age of 25, I grew up on the farm there. By the age of 25, I left Norway and came to the United States and to go to flight school. And I was in the business world for 23 years, flying and running an aviation company and so on. And then I burned out, so I started doing other things. And I got into mind development and the paranormal and things like that. And it kind of grew on itself. So, gosh, here I am today.
So you say that you've been able to do direct mind-to-mind contact with the universal consciousness. So what is the universal consciousness, and just how does that go? How does that happen?
Well, I know that sounds ridiculous.
Not to me.
Mind, that kind of insinuates that it is two minds, but still there is only one, but there is two expressions of it. I may perceive that I have my own expression of that mind, but I am still part of the other, all-encompassing universal mind, or God, if you will. Mm-hmm. And having this direct contact and download of information is not unique to me. It's happened quite a few times throughout history, where people get this flood of information. And, usually what happens is the same thing that happened to me, where, I had this and I didn't know what to do with it, so I started writing, and I kept writing for about 3 days. And I looked at that, and it was so far out there that I knew, no, I can't even talk to people about this because they are going to think I'm nuts. And I talked to about one guy, a level-headed fellow, well-educated, and he said, no, this makes sense. He says, go start studying quantum physics. There's a book at the library, and he told me the title of the book, and I went and read that book. The book's title is The Selfaware Universe. And it's a phenomenal book, actually. It's written with Amit Goswami. He's a PhD physicist. And he explained a lot of the things that I had seen and experienced. He wasn't so much in detail of it all, but there it was. So now I figured, well, I could talk about it, and that led to this book that I wrote.
Mm-hmm. So self-aware, the universe being self-aware, that's that kind of goes along. I'm just saying. I mean, it kind of goes along with the way of that I have of thinking of like God and who God is. And I've always thought of God as the universe, because it creates, it destroys, and I looked at us as like cells within that body, And so to say that it's self-aware, that kind of, I don't know, it kind of supports my thinking a little bit, I think.
Absolutely. You got it. And the thing about this self-aware universe, that we are that self-aware universe also. We're just one part of it, one extension of it. And when we talk about, people talk about God, and it's what I'm concerned and what I've seen is that is just another term for the same thing. And, of course, the word God, that shows up the very first time I find it back in the Sumerian tablets, thousands and thousands of years before the Bible was even thought of. Yeah. The word God meant great leader. And, of course, that was given, a different perception throughout the millennia. But this universal consciousness that is everywhere and every when. That's a new term, isn't it?
It is. I was just going to say everywhere, every when.
Yeah, because in the physical existence we have time and space. But outside of the physical, there is no time and space. The present, past, and the future is all there, sitting in that soup of creation, ready for us to interact with it. Well, actually, that's not totally true, because the lower astral worlds, they still have time and space, because that's where the ghosts, departed bodies, souls, they kind of hang around there, because they are also attached to the physical because of love and, other attachments. And, in the lower astral worlds, you still have time. But up and beyond that, there is no time. So the past and the present and the future is all now. So that's why I said every when, because it covers all time in the present.
Absolutely. Now, this is interesting. So then you're saying that basically everything that's happened in my past and everything that's going to happen in my future is actually out there to be accessed if we knew how.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And there is methods to do that. And in fact, I'm not the only one that talk about that, but I have developed something that seems to work. And you can access the past. And another way that actually psychiatrists do by accessing the past is also hypnosis. They can do time regressions, and they take you back to an event, let's say when you were 11 days old, and you will explain exactly what you saw. So that's a form of time regression, but that comes out of your conscious memory, usually. A really good hypnotist is able to go beyond that and access things that you did not see but may have happened at the same time.
So that is a form of going back in time. I mean, it really is, because when you think about it, when we leave this, this physical body, I mean, we're still going to exist. So, it's you don't have to bring your body to go places.
That's right, and the physical body, of course, that is this expression of the spark of life, or the soul, or the spiritual body, if you want. And when it comes to that physical existence around us, I got to lean on quantum physics a little bit, because they have proven that on the blackboard, their equations show that we live in a mind-created universe. And if it is mind-created, then it all depends on what is in the mind. And the universal mind expresses itself in the physical existence through our perceived mind. So what we have in our mind, that is what we are going to have in our existence and in our life. So the people that are total positive thinkers, they're going to have a little better life than the people that always think about crap and garbage all the time.
Well, that's horrible, because, I mean, it's true. I'm not arguing it, but that's horrible because, just about every day of my life I have to deal with the horrible stuff because of my job here. But however, I'll say this, when the show's over, I do my own things.
You go.
I don't get stuck in it. But yeah, you're right. People who, I've been around people who are just miserable, and there's no good in anything with those people, and I can't be around them long.
Yeah, they kind of wear you out and they drain your energy.
They sure do. Now, if it's possible to access our future, then is that to say that our future is kind of etched in stone? Then it's prearranged.
Yeah, but let's look at the existence a little bit.
Okay.
Past, present, and future outside of the physical, in the higher spiritual realms, are sitting there at the same location at the same time, the present. So there is no distance between the past and the future. There is no difference in time between the past and the future. Now that puts it pretty close between the two of them. So now the mind can bridge that bridge. And by accessing the past, it always seems to be a little easier, but normally people don't try to access the future. Psychics do, and some of them are better at it, but you can access the future also. But that is in that timeline where you are. There are different timelines reaching into the future, especially when you make major decisions.
Now, Augie, I've heard that before about the timelines. I've had people who have said that they've, like teleported and did these different things on different timelines, and it's not that I guess I kind of have a hard time, and I guess most people might, but wrapping your mind around these different timelines, because sometimes it almost sounds like an excuse for some people. It's like, well, why didn't this or that happen? And they say, oh, well, I'm sorry, it was another timeline that it happened. But it is possible that somebody psychic or what have you could be reaching into the wrong timeline, right?
Yeah, and I know that sounds goofy, but they are actually on to something.
I see.
Because if you do as you have done before, your future is fairly predictable. And what is in the future will pretty much be based on what you are doing today and the predictable actions and decisions you will make in the future. But if you, let's say tomorrow, decide, nope, I'm going to do something totally different, and the decision is done today, and I'm going to go this direction instead of that direction, now you're starting a different timeline. And whatever otherwise would have been, but is in that quantum wave, goes off on its own in that timeline, and you start a new timeline where different things will happen. Many of the things will be the same, but the major decision that you made will take you off on a different path.
I see.
So if we look at that for just a little further, there are actually some scientific experiments that show we can go back in time and change the past. Now that one is hard to wrap our heads around.
It's actually a little easier for me to wrap my head around that one, because something that's already happened, I could see us being able to go back to it, I guess, but something that was not supposed to have happened yet, it's amazing that we can go to it. And again, I'm not disputing it. It's great. I'd love to go to the future and see what's going on. I think.
Oh, me too, yeah.
I think I would.
Yeah, there is some nice things in a lot of these timelines into the future. But let's look at the past a little bit. Most of us screwed up something in the past that is so bad we'd really like to go back and have a do-over, right? I got my hand up.
Oh, yeah.
And the thing about it is that it is there. That decision you made, that bum decision you made, that could have been done different and things would have been better. It's still there. But because outside of the physical, it is sitting together with the past, present, and future, outside of space and time in the same location at the same time, which is now. And there's no distance between the past and the present. So the mind can bridge those two, and you can go back in your mind, visualize that decision so you understand it. You have it in your mind, you understand the decision, and you accept it was the wrong one. And then go back to, let's say, a day before that or sometime before that, and visualize yourself in a position where you know the decision might be coming up, or if you don't know it, you are aware of that it will coming up, and then you decide that when that decision, time for decision comes, you will make a different decision than you did last time. And if you go back and visit this particular time, back and forth to it, you lay down a tractor string through that particular time and space in the physical. So that after a while, you could start being drawn to it. And you could, in fact, end up at that time and make the decision that is different than what you did last time. The thing about it is that if that happens, then the previous timeline that you were on, according to, there are two different schools of thought on it. One of them is that the previous timeline collapses and it never existed. And the other school of thought is that it continues on its own and you are totally unaware of it. So it is there, but your major consciousness is in the new timeline where you enjoy the new decision.
That's what I was going to ask you, is whether somebody would know that they're now on a new timeline. I would think that you wouldn't. Yeah. You're not supposed to probably know that, right?
And quantum physics can't really agree on this. And from what I saw, the timelines continue. So the old one is still there, but you are not aware of it. That's my take on it.
It would be interesting to be able to, well, then I guess that would be seeing into the future maybe, but it would be interesting to be able to see the different timelines and be able to see, well, what would happen if I did this? What would happen if I did that? And then thinking about going back and changing something that now you're right, we all have something in our past that I think that most of us think we would like to go back and change, but then think about it. If you did go back and change just one little thing in your past, would that change who, what, and where you are right now? It might, right?
Very likely would.
And it might not always be for the better.
That's the thing, see. We don't know because we're going to make a new decision, but how do we know we will not make the same mistake again? Because if we're not aware of the previous decision, the bad one that we did, we could really make the same bad choice again.
Or, yeah, and we could find out that the decision we originally made that we thought was so bad was actually a blessing. Maybe guided by a guardian angel even, you know?
Absolutely. And there are such things. And there is a master plan for our life, and that was agreed to outside of the physical, because according to quantum physics and spiritual science, the only place there is random happenings is outside of the physical. So that was decided before you created the body and walked into it and started your hologram.
See, now this is another thing that, and again, I don't dispute it. I want to understand it better. But I've had so many through the years who've told me, we decide, our families, we decide. You know, I even had one tell me that we have several doors that we put in place to leave if we want. So you might have a bad car accident, and that was one of your doors to leave, and you choose at that time not to. So, you know, you go on to the next door. But anyways, but they say that we choose all this, and I think did somebody willingly choose to be in a family of abuse and things like that? And that's where I have a hard time, unless it's one of those things where, well, somebody has to do it, so okay, fine, I'll do it this time.
Yeah, I know that one is hard to understand, and God knows, we hope we don't make those decisions again if we ever did. But the thing is that for the spiritual spark of life, the soul, there is no such thing as a bad experience or a good experience. There are only experiences. And they learn from it. And we are not here to, get up in the morning, have breakfast, go to work, and come back and fall on the couch and practice dead for the rest of the night. That's not why we came here. We came here to learn and grow spiritually. And spirit, or the soul, cannot learn from a physical experience because it has no body of its own. It has to create this body so it can learn from physical experiences, because through us, the soul is learning. So now, if you walk in, let's say, to a situation where there's a bad situation in the family, with abuse and so on, that is such a major decision, we can almost be sure that was agreed to beforehand and designed by the spark of life to go through it so it can see and experience what it is. The minor things about what you're going to have for breakfast tomorrow, that's not really all that big a deal. But the major things, that is usually planned in the master plan beforehand. Though there are accidents happen on the other side too.
Yeah, and see, that's what I'm wondering too, is the other side. It seems like I used to think that maybe when we die here, it was one of my theories anyways, when we die here, we're actually being born on the other side. So while people here are crying and saying, oh my God, he's gone, people on the other side are saying, oh, look, the new baby's here. I don't know, something like that. But
that's a good thought.
But I don't know if that's the way it goes anymore, because, we got adults who are, you think about ghosts. I had a run-in with some myself, so I know they're real. And I'm thinking, why are they sticking around? Shouldn't they be going to their next lesson somewhere?
Yeah, and if you saw them, it's especially now, it's because the veil is getting thinner and thinner. Yeah. And in fact, if you want to see ghosts, there is something you can do, and it'll pretty much work every time. Two methods for it, and one of them is get your hands on a 4th generation night vision goggles, because through those you can see much higher into the light spectrum than your eyes can. And they used them over in the Middle East. They handed those out to officers, and the officers came back and complained and said, wait a minute, what's going on here? We see stuff, we see people, but when we take the goggles off, they're not there. So, yeah.
That's
you can see
incredible.
Higher, yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry. You can see higher into the light spectrum, so you see stuff outside of the physical.
Yeah, I want a pair of those. I think that because so these ghosts though. You said that there's. Is that one of the timelines? Is that where they are? Are they on some other timeline or?
Well, they are kind of trapped because some of them may not know they're dead. They're trapped walking around in the lower astral worlds where they exist, and they are walking around wondering, why in the world is nobody talking to me? It's kind of a miserable thing, but they're there.
That could be all the atheists who think that there's absolutely nothing. When you go, when you die, you're dead, and they're probably just still walking around thinking, because they just won't believe, even though they're there, they won't believe that there's another side, maybe.
I think you're exactly right.
Oh, yeah? You think that's it, huh?
Absolutely, because the thing about it is if they don't know anything further, if they don't believe anything further, remember we're in a mind-created universe, so that's what they created for themselves, and they got trapped because the consciousness doesn't die, it goes somewhere. but is not able to go up the ladder because they don't believe there is anything up and beyond what they can see. And from the lower astral worlds, they are able to see into the physical, so they can see us. We just can't see them.
Yeah. So then these planes cross. So then, I mean, I wonder if they're just as shocked when they see us as we might be when we see them, though, or do they? I mean, do they have the answers over there? Do they know?
No, there is an old saying, and that is that just because you're dead, it doesn't make you smart. So they don't know much more than what they knew when they died, until they are during in the lower astral worlds. That takes a little time for them to get re-educated to the fact that there is more, and then they start hopefully eventually going towards that light and get out of there. But it can take a long time.
Yeah. So, and again, there's no time. So really, no time existing where they are. So I know when I had my encounter, my mom, I mean, she looked 30 years old, and when she died, she was 64. And yeah, so I mean, she looked very young, and so, and it seems like I hear that a lot from people, that when they see somebody who had passed on, they seem to always be in that 30-year-old mark.
Yeah, they pick up. They take on the appearance of where they felt more comfortable.
Yeah, interesting. So,
yeah, did you have a lot of emotion with that sight?
Oh yeah.
Did that come?
Oh yeah. A ton, more
because
than I wanted.
Yeah, when you open up like that and see into the other realm, the love and the emotion seep through the other way, and you get that, and it's usually a very not traumatic, but a wonderful experience.
And it was, and you know, I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world, because anytime things get tough, I know there's people here who are pulling for me. So even if they're not in the physical, I know they exist, and I know that other side exists. And I wonder if now these other timelines, could we reach those? Say we travel through space, and I don't know, we went the speed of light. I mean, because the universe is so vast, we obviously can't see not even a drop of it, really. So if we were to travel through, I mean, would we eventually hit these other timelines? Might we hit a planet where all our dead loved ones are, and they're living a new life now? Or, I mean, could that be?
Yeah, it possibly could be. Let me. You spoke of the speed of light. That is only physical. And let me lean on quantum physics a little bit again, because they say that if you take one photon, cut it in half, and leave one particle on this end of the galaxy and move the other part of the particle to the other end of the galaxy, and then you excite or put an electric charge or something to this photon, the other half of that photon across the galaxy will react to that stimulation at exactly the same time, even though it's thousands of light years away, because there is no distance between the two of them in the oneness. So when it comes to the spiritual, we can think ourselves to the other side of the galaxy, and we will be there in a snap moment.
Interesting. So it wouldn't even be like bending space, right? I mean, it would be even...
No, that's all physical.
That's all physical.
Yeah.
I see. All right. So then, in your opinion, I mean, I know I'd give this description of cells within the body type thing, but in your mind, I mean, what is, I know what you said about God, but what is God? Like, it's an energy, right? I mean, is it an energy, or what is it?
It is all there is, including energy, intelligence, consciousness, physical matter, astral matter, bright white light, all the colors of spectrum in the physical. Everything there is God, because it has an intelligence or a consciousness embedded in it. And that's why we are all one, even though we look separate. And I have an analogy for that, actually. If you take a tree, like a tree that spreads itself through the root system, plant that tree in the middle of an open field. 10 years later, you're going to have a whole bunch of small trees around that one tree. 20 years, you're going to have a whole bunch of big trees around that small tree. And they all look like separate trees, but they're not. They're the same organism, but just different expressions of itself above the ground.
I see.
That makes sense?
It does. It does.
So, same thing with the spiritual. We are part of God, but we have different expressions of it. And a perception of individuality that really is not there. It's just a hologram that creates that. So we can learn and grow by having experiences in the physical.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. So then who would you say really created, not the first Bible, obviously man put that together, but would you say, I mean, people say that it's the Word of God. And see, I kind of, and I'm going to get people angry now, but I mean, I kind of have a problem with that a little bit.
Well, I have read the notes from the meeting at Constantinople, Turkey, when all these 224 people got together to decide what they were going to teach future generations to be able to unify them under one rule and control them. That was the order of Constantine, the emperor of the Roman Empire. He told them, go to Nicaea, create a religion that will unify my empire, and do not emerge before you have done so. That's why they spent several years there.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't dare to oppose the emperor. There were 3 people that voted no, that they haven't seen anything in these writings that said this Jesus was anything but a man. They were snapped up and they were taken to the very northern part of the Roman Empire and exiled. They were lucky they weren't killed.
Yeah, they are. So, and I've said that too, you know, and people get mad, and I think, well, think about it. If we, especially with time travel, if we can agree that time travel is possible, and I've had physicists on this show who say it actually mathematically it is possible. So if that's a possibility, who's to say, and then we got to factor in the whole ET thing, even though people don't like to do that. We have to. And who's to say that this guy didn't have technologies? I mean, because think about it now. We've got technologies now that would make it look like we've healed somebody. I mean, like, okay, you've got cataracts back then. You can't see. You don't think there's anything to be done about it. Well, then this guy, Jesus, comes in and performs a quick surgery, and, wow, I could see again. You know, that kind of thing. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I personally think that Jesus would love to have the technology that we have today.
Yeah?
And you speak of time travel, and I remember reading an article in Science magazine, and that's Technology and Innovation. The physicist they demonstrated how time can run backwards, and the future can actually affect the past. It was written by Professor Andrew Truscott, I think. Another article in Nature Physics speak of a study where some scientific experiments showing in time that time can actually run backwards, and there were some scientific experiments that were cited in it, and it did. So it's there. And in the back of my book, you can read about there's a method that I have been using to have a look at the future. And it's a form of time travel, and you can read about it in the back of the book, and there it's explained how to do it. So, yeah, and also in 2003, BBC Television came over to the United States and did a TV documentary with Michio Kaku and Green and several other theoretical physicists and myself. And we were discussing time travel, and first of all, is it possible, and what is the applications, how can it work? And I demonstrated a little electronic device on the show on the TV documentary where I actually was talking about some of the really strange experiences that I have had with it. So that's good. You can find it on the internet, actually. It's called Time Trip.
Time Trip.
Yeah, the thing is that not everything I talked about there actually happened. But, again, there are different timelines, and whatever you have in your mind is what you will have in the future. And at the time, I was hosting and producing 2 TV shows in Tucson, and they were pretty much negative ones. I was into government conspiracies and local politics and stuff like that, and I was just getting in their face all the time. And I was into that, so that's probably why I saw those things. Now I'm in a totally different arena. I don't deal with those things anymore, and I see some nice things in the future.
Oh, good. And I'd like to hear about a couple of those things, maybe if we get around to it. But I first I'll say I know exactly what you're talking about, in a sense of you know, what's in your mind is what might be, because you know, when I first started this show, for instance. Nobody wanted to give me any assistance in anything. Nobody wanted to tell me how they go about getting guests or any of that stuff, you know. And I was just doing my own thing. But I guess what helped me is, in my mind, I never seen myself below any of the others. So I wasn't afraid to contact the biggest guest, you know, whoever it might be, and say, hey, you know, I want you on the show. And I didn't expect to get turned down either. And you know what? I didn't. So, you know. There
you go.
You got to think that way.
Absolutely. And look at you now. You're one of the really successful ones out there.
Yeah, well, you know, I'm doing well. It's not easy. You know, it's not easy, because when you do get into things like this, even what we're talking about, there's some people it goes against their religious beliefs or stuff like that. So it's not easy. People get dirty, and in all fairness, there's a lot of good shows out there. It's just I don't know of them all. You know, so but we've got a few really good ones right here on this network, and and so I'm just it's worked out pretty well. So I'm happy about it.
I'm sure of that, and the big reason for that is because of you, because I do a lot of radio shows, and I tell you, talking with you, it just flows. It feels natural. There's no stress, no nothing. It all falls into place because, I guess, who you are.
Well, and that's the way I intended to. You know, in the early going, I had a couple shows where I did no preparation. And I was a rookie, and boy, I come in, and boy, they were the most uncomfortable, horrible. I mean, just the feeling, the sweat and bullets behind the mic, because you have no idea what you're going to say to this person. So you've got to be able to carry on the conversation. So I learned the hard way a couple times, and you know, I figured this: if I'm not interested in it, then don't cover it, because I think that's the mistake a lot make, is they bring on people because other people had them on, and then they don't know what to talk to them about. So, but anyways.
And speaking about something you're interested in, you know, that flows.
Yeah, well, it does too, and then you know a little something about it as well, and that helps. Yeah. But you're like this. I mean, this is something I love talking to as many people as I can about, because it's important. And you know, some people say, "Oh, why talk about the paranormal or death?" I mean, but look, we're all going to get there. Don't you want to know? I do. So I'm interested. So basically then, what are you? I mean, who created you? Where in your mind, I mean, where did we all come from?
Well, let's see. Let's use you brought it up. Let's use me as an example here.
Okay.
The spark of life, or the individualized perception of the soul, it still is one with the universal consciousness, or God. But that oneness wants more experiences. So that's why it has created this individualized perception of a soul that needs the experiences, and that soul mark out or plan ahead for a life journey. the major events and a lot of the things in that journey is pre-planned. And then it says, okay, now I have the plan, just like building a house. You make the drawings up before you start building the house. And then that soul creates the body and decide where it will be born into. And usually it is born into a situation where there is other souls that works on the same thing, or it's within a family of souls that kind of have many, many lifetimes together. And then once you are born in, then the body is created from that holographic image that the soul projects into the physical.
Oh, so it's kind of like a support group, like not being funny, but say a AA. Everybody meets every week to give each other support, and so it's basically like that.
Yeah, kind of like that, except that this program works in AA. They have self-proclaimed 96% failures.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and it's somewhat similar. There is a family of souls that works together to work things out and learn and grow.
So what would be some of, and of course I don't want you to give away all your secrets, so definitely, want people to go to your website and purchase the book, and but what are some of the techniques that can help people access this universal consciousness? And I mean, what kind of things do they have to do, and what is the benefit to somebody doing this?
Well, let me deal with how first, and then the benefits will be apparent.
All right.
The thing about it, here in the physical existence, everything is physical. And outside of the physical, in the higher spiritual realms, there is no physical, so here we communicate using a language of words and phrases and sound and visual stuff, like we do. Outside of there, the words are basically worthless, because words usually are given out or spoken without feeling or any images with it. There's a thought that comes with it, but it's just a thought. In the spiritual world, words are pretty much worthless because it's a different language. It's a language of visual, colorful images, emotion, love, and companionship, and gratitude, and mathematics. And while we're in the physical, when we pray, and everybody's prayed at least once, I don't care if you're an atheist, at least once you've done it, if we use words, we can always be sure that nothing's going to happen. But if we use the spiritual language, then the spiritual intelligence will understand what we are requesting and what we talk about. So that's how emotion is the carrier of thought. So when we start, let's say we ask for something to happen, and then we first visualize it with colorful images. We try to find something to add emotion with it. We fill it with love. See other people enjoying it. And then we are thankful for having it received. Because remember, where this request goes, there is no past, present, and future. It's just now, so we have received it already because it was there. We placed it there because we thought it into existence. So now we already have it there. Now all we have to do is to draw it back to us, and it's coming into a physical existence, so it is subject to the physical laws of physics. So now it could take a little time for us to receive it. And of course it will help if we do everything we can to help it come into our lives. You remember the saying, God will give you the nut, but he won't crack it?
Yeah.
We got to do our part.
Yeah.
So when we are asking something with emotion, love, and so on, and then we thank that universal consciousness, thank you for what I have received, and thank you for what I will have, and thank you for what I have received.
And
I thank you for this thing that you are asked for. Now, the road is open, coming back. And then you do everything you can in order to make it happen, help it happen.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I've always been like that. I've been thankful for what I have, and I've never had a whole lot. But that's okay for me. I'm happy with that because I look at it this way: things can always be worse. Even when last year when I had my heart attack. I look back at that and I think, from the start, I never thought of it really as a horrible thing because I quit smoking. I quit drinking Pepsi products. I mean, so, it had its pluses, which I think the cigarettes and the Pepsi products would have killed me quicker than another heart attack would have. So,
yeah.
So, but yeah, I'm good. I'm doing good now. I walk a few miles a day. I'm fine. If it's not my time,
wonderful.
Yeah, I've got a lot of work to do yet. Got the good man upstairs. He's not going to let me get out that easy.
No.
So
no, there's a plan for you.
Well, yeah, and I believe that, and I think that this is part of it. What I'm doing right now, and it may sound corny to some, but it just makes sense to me because I look at the way I got drawn into what I do, and I can make a whole show out of that one night. But there was things that just put me where I was supposed to be for this to happen, where I wasn't supposed to be. So, it's crazy how the universe works, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. And the thing about it is that we are usually abusing ourselves to the point where we do get sick, because if we don't give the body what it needs to rebuild itself, it won't. And we get sick, and we grow old and die. And that's why, the Center for Disease Control now have invented a new disease. You know what it's called? Aging.
Yeah.
And that is actually true, because 6 years ago, the Nobel Prize was given to 3 doctors that discovered an enzyme that reverses the aging process.
Oh, okay. So you're telling I thought you were joking around here, but
Oh, no.
Oh, okay.
It's real. And I tell you, I've done a lot of research on this, and this could be a show of its own, but I found people that is immensely old. I found, verified by Chinese government documents, a man in China that was 254 years old.
Now, that's interesting you say that, because the very first year I did this show, it might have been the first few weeks I did this show, this was over 8 years ago, I had a guy who came on the show, and I've since tried to contact him. I can't get a hold of him, but he come on and he told me he was in contact with a man who was 2,400 years old. This guy lived in, I don't know if it was India or something like that, and we did a show on it, and this guy says that his friend actually was around during the Jesus era and all, and so we were supposed to communicate again, and I never heard from him again. I always thought, it's got to be crazy. I mean, 2,000 some years old, but I guess if you know the biochemistry of it, and like you just said, I guess you could turn it off, right?
That is not that hard to do. In the book, I explain exactly how to do it, how to get a hold of this enzyme, and how to have it made in your body, so it can be done. In fact, if I look at myself, let's say 4 years ago, the way I looked then and I look now, it's a big difference, and I've been doing it for a while. So it is working. And the thing about it is that once you start reversing the aging process, age-related diseases go away.
Yeah, that's what gets me excited, if you can live long enough. And some people say, well, I wouldn't want to do that, it's going against this or that. Look, if I could turn it off and stay, go back, even put me back to 30 years old and keep me there, I mean, I don't mind if I die when I'm 100. Just let me be good until that time comes,
Yeah, and, immortality, theoretically now immortality is possible. In fact, about 15 years ago, I got a document from one of the leaders, one of the ones that was in charge of the Genome Project. It was a good friend, and he gave me this draft of a document. It wasn't not the last part of the draft, but I got it. And the title of the draft was that the problem with human mortality has been solved. And he explained how. It was a very interesting document. And it's based on the fact that, oh God, I don't know, should we go into this or?
Well, sure.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. This document that explains that there's a there's three different facets to aging and dying. One of them is it's a genetic defect, and we have genetic therapy now that can correct that. And in fact, I have a book that I bought, and the title of the book is How to Reprogram Your DNA for Optimum Health. We can change our DNA by the way we are thinking. We can turn off bad markers and turn on the good markers. And I talk about that in the book. In fact, it's quite extensive. And now the other one is that if we don't give the body what it needs, it can't rebuild itself. So we need proper nutrition. Few of us get it.
That's true. And, one of the things I seen was there was a few things, well, a couple things. One was the gene. They see, like you said, they've actually located what they thought was the aging gene. And the other one was stem cells, where they can, they could use stem cells to rejuvenate your body and really reverse the aging process. Excuse me. And I'm thinking, with all that type of technology, being able to do it, why aren't we doing this? We should be doing it.
Well, the thing is that you're right on that, because they found the Terminator gene. Actually, it's not one gene. There's a succession of 2 or 3 of them. And it starts with the pituitary being able to degrade itself and dry up. That causes less growth hormones, which again causes the telomeres at the end of the chromosomes to shorten every time that the cells replicate themselves. And when the telomeres get so short, they can no longer hold the genetic strand together. It starts fraying at the end. Then the cells are no longer able to replicate themselves, and you get stuck with old cells in the body, and you get older and you die. That's the cause for aging. All this can be changed now. But in that document from the Genome Project, the third one is going to upset some people. They said that we have a mental disease called religion.
And now I was going to agree with you before you said religion. Now I absolutely agree with you.
Yeah.
But
look what's happening with the Muslims and the people in the Middle East and so on. We can see it, but we don't recognize it because according to the UN, there's 3,000 religions on earth, and all 2,999 of them are the wrong religion. Only ours is the right one. We know that.
Yeah.
So, but the thing is that the reason that religion was named as such was because religions tell us that once we die, we will go to a better place. And when we get older, we start getting sick, we're hurt everywhere, and we are maybe lonely, and we get depressed and so on, and we start looking at that better place. That starts looking like pretty good. So we start longing for that better place, and that draws us towards death, which will bring us to that better place, and that's the mental disease.
Yeah, that makes sense. My dad, he's going to be 86 in April, and he's always been, right in through his 70s. Was always like, he'd run through the house, look out the window, see who pulled in next door, And
yeah.
But now he's telling me that he's starting to feel it, and he's just saying things to me that I really don't want to hear. But and it's a shame, that.
Yeah.
I hear about this wonderful, loving God and all this, and I'm thinking, okay, well, couldn't we at least have a little mercy on the way out? I mean, do we have to be in all the pain and agony and all the health problems going out? Because that really sucks.
Yeah, I know it.
Yeah.
But that's because of lack of knowledge. We don't know as much as we should. And, the thing is that if we knew these things, then we wouldn't necessarily need to die. Well, at least not as early. And can you imagine what happened to the Social Security and the pension programs if people quit dying?
Well, I think that if that happened, they would also have to, there would probably be some rule about having babies, too. I mean, there would have to be, right, at some point. I mean, maybe one per family.
Chinese are doing that.
Well, yeah, and it would probably be, you'd have to choose. I mean, I guess everybody'd have to vote. Do you want to live longer or do you want to have lots of babies? So. Yeah,
then again, we can look at it the other way, too. Germany is going backwards in their population growth. Russia is going backwards. So it can be done without having this one-child quota like they do in China. South America is in a bad shape because the Pope has forbidding people to use condoms, and they have no concept of what it would be like if they only had one child. They just don't think that way. So they're exploding in population, and that's going to come back and bite them.
Yeah, it always does. I mean, I understand. See, I think the overpopulation thing, I think, is blown out of proportion right now. I really do. But I think that at some point it could get like that. I mean, people think it's impossible because it's such a big planet, but there's resources too. I mean, you turn 7 into 14, 14 into 21, and I don't know, there might be a shortage of peaches or something. Somewhere.
Yeah.
But
in the book there, I explain what these old people ate and how they lived, and this enzyme, how we can actually use this enzyme to stop the aging process. And this is something that, if people knew it, it would be a different world.
It would be, and you, like me, if I could do this show and watch the scientific discoveries for another 150 years, I'd love that, because I think that, I worry about missing out on some big stuff, and I wouldn't want to do that. And I'm young yet. I mean, I'm not an old guy per se. I mean, like you ask the kids, and I am, but I'm really not. So,
what do kids know?
Yeah, exactly. What do kids know? They say the darndest things, anyways, right? But yeah. So that would be great. So you say there is methods that people could do with their mind to slow down the aging process, or completely reverse it.
Yes. It appears as it also can be done by the mind, because there's one enzyme that reverses the aging process. Is called Telomerase. Telomerase. For the ones that want to go research this, they're going to really get an eyeful, because there's some phenomenal research out there. The way I started look at the research, I went to the Nobel Committee and I looked up, they got the Nobel Prize, so the Nobel Committee had to have it, and I went there in 2009 and I scrolled down to find medical submissions, and I read the papers. It blew me away. And everybody can do this, so you can start looking at it. And I found also that there are some Chinese herbs that is much cheaper and works just as well. On page 99 of this book, How to Reprogram Your DNA for Optimum Health, it explains, excuse me, it explains that what Chinese herbs that can be used to get the same effect and create this enzyme naturally in your body. And I write about that in the book there. That's quite interesting, too.
All right.
It can be done.
All right, great. Augie, hang on with us for a couple minutes. We've got to take a break here. When you say, like when we talk about universal consciousness speaking to you, or speaking to anybody for that matter, are we talking about, by any chance, that little voice that we all hear, that voice that says don't do something, or do, and that a lot of us don't listen to it? Is that part of that?
That is absolutely.
It is.
That is absolutely it.
Oh.
That is it.
Okay. And so I mean, okay, so then what about people who are like sitting at a light, the light turns green, they don't go for some reason, they sit there longer, and it's a good thing they did because on the other side, somebody just kept going and went through the light. And would that be a sense of psychic ability, or what's going on there? And are you able to do to use your mind in a psychic type way?
Well, it's probably the subconscious spark of life that holds you back, and by placing thoughts in your mind, maybe, or giving you something to do or something to straighten out in the seat next to you, so that takes a little longer, just so you will be delayed enough for the accident not to happen. There are help on the other side, because there are other sparks of life that is interacting with you, and they are as one. They are one of you, so we all have our interests at heart, and we are working together for experiences and learning. And this is something that, when that little voice talks to you and say, "I don't think that's safe," we should listen, because when we don't, often afterwards we end up telling ourselves, "God, I really had a bad feeling about that, but I did it anyway, and now look where I am."
I've been there. I've done that. You know what happens a lot though too with me, Augie, is I'll have people like I'll say something I might be getting ready to talk about on the air or what have you, and I'll have people a lot of times who will suggest to me that I don't know if you should do that. You might not want, and I do it, and it's always a good thing that I did.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's strange how that works, but yeah, it's just like with my heart attack. I mean, I had signs, and even though the doctor was telling me, "Oh, you're fine, you could go do," I was in New York at the time, and the first doctor tells me, I told him I was getting some swelling, retention in my ankle, in my foot, and he said, "Oh, no, you're fine. Go ahead and make that trip to South Carolina. You're going to do just fine," And so he had me believe that. Of course, that's what I wanted to hear. But that little voice in my head was saying, "Mike, don't be stupid. That means something." But I ignored it. And, as time went on, it got me. So
Yeah.
we ignore that little voice, and I don't think we should. Now, I would love to make contact with my mother again. And so far, fortunately, my life hasn't been in shambles where I've needed any spiritual interaction, thank God. But I never, because that seems to be when it happens, right? So I would like to make some kind of contact. How can because I mean, I could do it through psychics, but there's always that doubt in the back of my mind. Are they really connected to my mother, or are they just telling me what I want to hear? And I don't want that doubt. I want to know. So is there a way that I can do that even though I'm not psychic? I don't feel like I'm psychic.
Well, you are psychic, but you have pretty much decided that you aren't, which probably makes it harder for you.
I see.
On the other hand, there are some psychic that is better than others. And you know who the really good ones are? They're the ones that don't charge you for it.
Do you know? And you're absolutely right about that. You're absolutely
because
right.
They do it for a different reason. They do it to help instead of making money.
That's right. That's
but
right.
There is a way of communicating across the veil otherwise too, and it is always best if you have your own experience. So one thing that you can do, and if you want to communicate from your existence over there, they can see you, but normally you can't see them. The thing about it is that the astral worlds, which they have to travel down through to get to you, that is outside of the physical, so it's kind of like from the outside looking into the box. Everything they see is like it is looked in the mirror. It's backwards. So if you write a message, you can leave that somewhere next to the bed or in the bathroom or somewhere where, visitor don't get all goofy on you. But so you can see it. and whoever is in the room with you can't see it. But write the message backwards, because that tells them on the other side that, aha, this is for me.
Uh-huh.
Because they are looking at it just like they're looking in the mirror, because they're outside the box.
And you've got to trust yourself too. See, what I worry about with myself, this is the I guess meditation is one of the things that I've tried many times, and it's hard for me because my mind is I hear something, or even if I think I've connected somewhere, I'm now doubting myself and thinking, well, could this be the thoughts in my head, the memories in my head that are doing this? So it's really, how do you know for sure that you're like people who say, I've got ET is communicating with me and talking to me, and I'm thinking there's two options here, or three. One is they're lying. Two is that they're really hearing voices, but they're just hearing those voices because something's wrong. Or three is they're really connecting with ET. And so I never know, it's hard to say what's going on there.
Yeah, when it comes from someone else, you really never know. That's why it's always best to have your own experience. And there are ways you can do that. You actually can have those experiences. And like you said, one thing is listen to that voice, because the more you listen, the more stronger that voice is going to be, all the way up to the voice, but you can actually hear the words, not just a thought.
Yeah.
And the more you practice, it's kind of like a muscle. The more you exercise the muscle, the stronger it's going to get. And you can do that. And in meditation, though, that is the best way to communicate. In fact, on my blog, which I'll give you the website to it in a little bit.
Okay.
On my blog, I just 2 days ago, I think it was, I wrote something on meditation. There are some tricks to make it easier. When I started meditating several years ago, they basically told me, sit down, think about absolutely nothing, and whatever happens is good. They didn't tell me much else. And that didn't do much for me. I practiced, and nothing happened.
Well, I tried, and I heard the neighbor's dog bark, or I heard the garbage truck go by, and it's just, I'm thinking garbage truck now.
Yeah, there is a way to close the mind down, because there are some mind tricks you can do, and it's so simple. It'll take you all of 45 seconds to learn it, and then it'll work from there on. And it's really simple. I'm sure there are at least one or two meditators out there that are listening to this, and it's really very simple. There is a yogic mind trick that once you sit down, kind of relax, look straight ahead and cross your eyes just a little bit. Not so much that it hurts, but just a little bit. And then you close your eyes, and you keep those eyes crossed a little bit. Excuse me. And what that does is that now the mind is busy doing something that it does not take thought to do. And it dulls the mind, and all thoughts go away. You can try that sometime, and it works. And of course, also, if a thought pop in on you, just recite in yourself, my mind is still, my mind is still, and then draw out the L, my mind is still. When you do that, you're going to find it don't take much to dull the mind to the point where you think about absolutely nothing.
Yeah. Well, and that helps. I know the place I'm in now, I don't really hear nothing outside unless I go outside. It's actually very well insulated. So that's a good thing. So I might have more success here. But, one of the things that I've come to do is when I have big decisions in my life that I need to make, I find some quiet time, and I do meditate on it. Now, I don't know how far I get with the meditation, but it certainly helps. And I like to do it just about before I go to bed, because then once I fall asleep, my mind's still working on that. And when I wake up, it's like I have the answer. It's kind of strange.
And that works. It actually works.
It has for me anyways. I mean, I've had things that I thought were the end of the world one night, and then I'll go to bed and I wake up and it's like, what was I concerned about that for? This is what I got to do. And it's like your mind actually, it's like your consciousness leaves and goes and consults with somebody and comes back and knocks and says, hey, wake up, dummy, I got the answer.
That is exactly what happens. When you have a challenge, gosh, I hate calling it a problem because that's severe. Challenges are something that you yourself haven't figured out how to take advantage of yet. When you lay down and you go to sleep, tell yourself, I know the challenge. I understand it. And in the morning, I will have the answer that will work for the best of all concerned. Say that over and over and over again as you fall asleep. And in the morning, if you don't have the answer, it'll come during the day or at least before you need it.
Uh-huh.
But you talk to yourself as you fall asleep because that's when the alpha brainwave pattern is the strongest, and that's the state of mind where you have most creative capability.
And that's what I practice. Things that I need to really think about, even if it's show related. I mean, believe me, folks, I take some of this show stuff to bed with me at night. I really do. And so, you know, I'll meditate. Like if there's something I want to focus on the next day, I could go to sleep and thinking about it, and really I wake up and I don't know, it's like that creativeness just kicks in, and it's like it's already worked out for me. It's kind of strange. And then when I talk to people, guests who say, well, there's, you know, I'm in contact with these spirits, blah, 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 and these spirits or whatever is telling me to write this book. And I used to think that was a little crap. I'm thinking, boy, all these ghosts want people to write books. How come they're not telling me to write books? But maybe it works differently for people. It could, you know, I think there's a drive like that behind a lot of people who do whatever, do what you do what I do, you know, depending on what it is, right?
Yeah. And, of course, looking at it from an outsider like me here, you know, you are probably helping people and affecting more lives than most people that write books.
Well, one of the problems is people don't want to read no more, it seems. And that's, you know, they want, it's either a video or forget it. That's not good. So, but not everybody. That's for sure. There's a lot of people who still read. We got a little library here for the kids. And, you know, they sit and read books. We make sure they read books. And you got to read. But yeah, so where can people get your book?
I can give you a couple of websites. Let me first give you my blog, because you can find the books there too, but I write about a lot of the details and stuff in the books on those blogs, so they'll be worth visiting for you.
Okay.
And that is www.aage-nost.com.
Okay.
And that's my name, of course, with a dash in the middle. And www.aage-nost.com.
All right, and that's being that's been posted in the chat room as well as it's on our homepage too. But I like to ask and give it out because sometimes people listen from other places and they don't go to the website. So
there you go. And then the book, where you can go and see more or everything that is in the book, you can read about that. That is www.spiritual-sciences.net. Spiritual-sciences.net.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And so, all right, so we got that. We got one last break we'll be taking in about 15 minutes, and then we'll come back. And, of course, I open the floor for whatever, whether it be chat questions. As a matter of fact, we'll get to some of those in a few minutes, too. But I want to ask you, because somebody in the chat, actually JH, who's in our chat, she's a moderator of ours, and she said, you know, talking about age and how cruel it is. And that just made me think, I mean, is this some kind of curse that is put, and I'm not one who believes in all that voodoo stuff, right? But could this be some kind of curse on mankind? I mean, why? it seems like life is just a blink of an eye. We work so hard to get where we are, like even in our stages of our lives, and you get there and you finally get where you want to be as you get old, and then boom, it's over. And it's like then I'm told that I have to come back and do it again, and I'm thinking, well, that's not fair. I mean, can't I just like open up my old locker and pick up where I left off?
Yeah, you lose all your stuff too. No, I'm joking here. But let me maybe touch a little bit on how aging came about, because it wasn't originally. Because according to the Sumerian tablets, that was written thousands and thousands of years ago, there is a creation of mankind explaining there, because right at 445,000 years ago there was an alien spaceship that splashed down in the Arabian Sea. And they walked to shore, and these aliens, they started a small community, which they called Eden. And the leader of that group, his name was Enlil. His wife was Ninmah. And they are the ones that created mankind right at 301,000 years ago, according to the Sumerian King's List, which the Hebrew King's List was taken from and altered to fit their agenda, because it's got to fit within 6,000 years. So they changed it. And when they created mankind, they did that because they were digging for gold, because they needed gold on their home planet. And they were digging, mining for gold, and these Anunnaki that was doing the digging, they got tired of digging for all these years, so they revolted. And Enlil, he thought he could create a species that would just work and ask no questions. So he took one of the species that was there already, and they explain very much in detail in those Sumerian tablets how they took apart the two twisted ropes of life and inserted their own substance into it, and then implanted that in the species. That sounds like genetic engineering to me.
It sure does.
Yeah, and then that species became us. The first one wasn't the Adam, by the way. It was one that they called Lulu. And that Lulu kind of failed on them, so they went and, several other experiments, so they came up with the Adam. They call it the Adam, and that is also in Genesis they speak of the Adam that God created. Well, God was the great leader, and there was Enlil, according to the Sumerian tablets, written tens of thousands of years before.
Uh-huh.
But they took away many of the qualities of themselves. They did not want us to have long life. They did not want us to have knowing what is in the other's mind, with otherwise telepathy. They denied us that.
It's kind of like how we manufacture things today. None of it's made to last.
Yeah.
But go ahead. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, they did that.
Uh-huh. So, and I see us doing the same thing now, and that's what leads me to wonder, I mean, is the Anunnaki still in control? Are we the Anunnaki or something? I mean, because here we are. Obviously, we will have their DNA, right? That's probably the junk DNA, but we're creating artificial intelligence now. I mean, we're able to grow hearts and grow people and do all these things, cloning and all these things that, the ETs have been, accused of doing in the past. I mean, even we'll go out in the oceans, we'll abduct a dolphin or a shark, we'll tag them, we'll let them loose, and I wonder, they're probably telling the same stories. I'm telling you, those people are up there in their ships and they abduct you, but
yep.
But it's like we're repeating it. It's like we're designed just like them. I mean, here we are doing the same things.
Yeah, that's the thing. The Anunnaki is still around, and there was a guy over in England, McKinnon. He hacked into the NASA computer, and he found that, yep, they're still around, and they are working with the dark projects behind the U.S. Military in the secret space program. He found a list of crew on one of those spaceships, and there was some of them were listed as non-terrestrial crew.
I seen that, and you know what? I wanted to confirm it myself because unlike some people, I don't believe everything I read on the internet. So I actually emailed this gentleman, and he emailed me back, and he confirmed it. Yes, he did. He's seen documentation that they had, the U.S. Navy has a secret space program, that there are ships above, orbiting the Earth now, and that they're, non-human. I seen that.
Yes, it is. And the ship that he was talking about, one of them was USS Helen Carter.
Yeah.
And it is over a mile long.
Wow, kind of like the Phoenix Lights kind of deal where that big ship went over the state.
Yeah, that's it.
So what do you think is going to come out of all this? I mean, what's the end result? I mean, how long do they sit there in the tree stand and watch the animals play? There's got to be, I mean, do they just stay there? I mean, why are they doing it? Why are they there?
Well, they have come here to help, and some of them have, not all of them have. But there is so much evidence for UFOs now, unidentified flying objects, that it cannot be denied anymore. Many of the governments around the world has released the information on it. Brazil have, the Russian Navy did, and England did. It's there to read. So, the Americans are kind of stupid that they are, I'm talking American government now, that they're still denying it.
Oh, no, believe me, it's not just the government. It stems into some of the people, too. I mean, I know, I say this all the time. You want to talk about a disease. Stupid is a disease, and it does affect a lot of people. And I ain't being mean. I'm being honest here. There's people who just will not believe this, despite a man who hacked into NASA's computers, and then, okay, you could say, well, he's lying. He didn't really see what he says he's seen. Then you tell me why they were going like crazy for years trying to expedite him back to the United States, and that they made up lies that he made like $800,000 in damages to their computers, and which was all lies. They wanted this guy. They're like, all right, we're going to shut this guy up. He says, he told me he's got more that he hadn't released yet because he wanted his trial to be over, which is now over. And he said he's now writing a book, and he's going to put the rest in that book. And he's promised me an interview when he's done.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah, so I'm looking forward to it. So I'm very curious as to what else he found.
That's going to be interesting to see.
Yeah.
But the thing is that there are not only the Anunnaki, there are many, many other species. And there is not just me saying this now. There's a lot of astronomers that say they see stuff flying around the moon that cannot be explained because it's not supposed to be there. And there's a whole horde of ships up there that is just flying around. Most of them are on the stationary orbit on the other side. But they're there, they're waiting because there's going to be a disclosure very soon. And some of them have been there as almost a year. So it's going to happen. I don't think it's going to be very long because they cannot keep the lid on this can much longer.
I don't think they can either. I'm surprised they've gotten away with it this long because, Augie, I have seen crafts myself. My wife and I, we've seen a couple big ones together. I mean, and I would never make this stuff up. I mean, I'm being totally honest with people. And you could say UFO is unidentified, but the thing is, I don't like to even say that because it's not like I didn't know what I was looking at. I just didn't know where it came from. But I know what I was looking at was intelligently controlled, and it was really, really big, and it was nothing I've ever seen on an airport anywhere on this planet. So amazing, amazing stuff.
Yeah, this probably had no wings.
It didn't have any wings. It didn't make any sound, and it moved in any direction, any way, in a blink of an eye. I mean, it did what it wanted. And it seems these things, based on what I've seen, they get really bright. When they power up to go, they get really bright. So they're pulling in power or energy from somewhere, and then they're gone. It's poof.
Yeah, they're building up the fields.
Yeah. I mean, something, and then we're getting so many messages from them. I mean, these crop circles, I wish people would just get their heads out of their butts. It's not a couple guys with strings in 2x4s on their feet. It's really not. These things are way too advanced, these crop circles, for these guys, for any human beings to be doing it. I mean, I've seen pictures. I've had experts on the show, and I mean, just the way these things. No way. There's just. I'd like for someone to prove it and do it and make it exactly like that, and don't break any of the plants, because these plants aren't broke.
I'm sure you've seen the video. It lays down 5 or 6 circles in a matter of about a second and a half. You've probably seen that video.
Yes, and it's like this ball of light. It's almost like they release these drones, their own form of a drone that comes down and does this. It's like almost like I don't know, like us sending an email to each other. That's their way of sending a message. But yeah, I've seen that.
Yeah,
it's incredible.
Phenomenal.
It is.
And besides that, these 2 guys over there, that claim they did it with the rope and the stick, they've died, so he's not involved anymore.
Well, yeah, exactly. And I mean, this is happening all over the place, all over the world. So, it's, I don't know, it's just amazing. People keep saying, oh, show me proof, show me proof. Folks, you're living on proof, and you just won't believe it. I don't know what to tell you. But hang on, Augie. Let's take this last break, and then let's come back. We'll finish up. And what say you about animals? I mean, me personally, I think that not only animals, but I think plants, I think everything that's alive, I think has soul, has consciousness, and in some level has some kind of awareness.
You're right. Everything has consciousness. In fact, you're lucky you have this little gray cat there. I love cats. When I lived in Minneapolis, I had a cougar for a pet, and she was so intelligent. You could communicate with her. I could sit in the other room, and I could want her, let's say in the kitchen, and she was downstairs, and I want her to come up. Within 2 minutes, she was upstairs.
Yeah, isn't that something?
Yeah, these animals, they're much more intelligent than what we give them credit for, and yes, they do have spirit.
Oh, they really do. I mean, this guy here, he's got his own personality. I mean, if I was a cat, I would be him. I mean, he's like me in fur.
Yeah.
He's got. I wish he could speak. I wish he could get up on the microphone. He might take my job from me. I mean, but yeah, they're just so intelligent, and it's like with plants too. I mean, that's just the arrogance of a lot of humans, right? We look at these things and we think less of them, because we think we're more intelligent. And I look at it this way. Maybe this plant now has come back, and it's a plant because it doesn't need all the stuff that we need right now. Maybe it's gone so advanced in its intelligence and its consciousness, we see a plant that's just sitting there when really it's probably a free spirit.
Plants have life also. If you get your hands on a book called The Secret Life of Plants, they did some experiments where they proved, scientific experiments where they proved that plants talk to each other, they communicate, they send messages, they have emotion. It's all there.
Yeah, they do. They do. Even squirrels. I mean, I used to have a couple. I used to come out every morning back when I had my business. I'd come out every morning on my balcony, And squirrels knew that at that time of that morning I was going to be out there with toast for them. I mean, they knew it. They were there on time every morning. And it's, so they have to have some awareness to be able to remember like that, right?
Then they have emotion. Let's say that if you have two cats in the house and they are really good friends and one of them died, you can see the other one grieving. You can see tears. Elephants, they cry. Cows cry. Dogs cry. You can see the emotion in it. So they have an awareness that we don't think of, but it's there.
Yeah, that's true. Because we had two cats here, and the younger one, the female cat, there's a better home for her, because just having two cats was a little too much, and for me, anyways. And you could tell he doesn't mind being alone, but when she was gone, just as she was kind of going in heat, she went with somebody who could give her all the medical attention she'll be needing. And he kind of let me know. I mean, he'd take a swipe at me once in a while, and I mean, it's like I could read his mind, So he wasn't happy about the change at first, but now he's fine. I mean, but yeah, they do miss each other, and I think if they spent a lot of years together and then one of them died, you would see it would be a lot worse. So.
Oh yeah.
It is. I mean, some people like Doug Flutie, the former quarterback of the Buffalo Bills. He said his I think it was his mother died of a heart attack, and then an hour later his father died of a heart attack. It's like, and they were married for, I don't know, 50 years, something like that. And so they're that connected that one goes, the other one goes. Yeah. Anyhow, So anyhow, I want to get to a few questions here in the chat room. Let's see, we've got just a few here. Let's see. Ask Augie if his blood type is B plus, and has he ever considered this angel in a determining factor that enables these types to be more susceptible to initiating the aware consciousness? I don't even know what that means, but I don't know if
the second part of that question, I'm not sure either. But first of all, no, it's not a B plus. It's an A something. I'm not really sure what it is, but it was an A something. But an angel, considering an angel, was that what it said?
It says, and has he ever considered this angel in a determining factor that enables these types, or any types, to be more susceptible to initiating the aware consciousness?
No, the word angel, see, that is also given a meaning that was never meant to have, because in the old Sumerian tablets, in that language, the word angel means messenger. It was not a guy with wings on. Of course, angels aren't supposed to have wings anyway. That's the cherubs. But no, I go directly to the source. Now I've done this for 50 years, so I communicate directly, and I don't get answers all the time. But
well, you get what you're supposed to have.
Yeah, it comes.
Yeah.
And I do that in meditation with here is something that I want to say real quick. For someone that wants to develop their psychic abilities or their spiritual advancement to the point where they have communication on both sides of the fence or the veil, two things I would recommend very much that they do. First of all, start meditating. And even on my blog there, and in my book, they explain a little bit about, quite a bit actually, about meditation. And the other thing I would recommend very much is a mind development course that I taught 20-some years ago. I traveled around the country and did. What it does, it teaches you, first of all, how to assimilate information out of a book at 50 to 75,000 words a minute with 95% retention. And it also exercises that channel from the conscious mind into the subconscious mind. It opens up a channel where you get a two-way flow of information going. And this mind development course is ZOX Pro, ZOXPRO. And I would recommend it very much because that really helped me a lot.
Yeah.
I didn't mean to advertise for him, but it's the truth.
Oh, no, that's quite all right. And now the same listener says that he is going to buy your book, and he says that he wants to know if there's a way that he can contact you.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And that is through my blog, or I could give you an email address. That'll be all right. I could do that now.
Hey, it's up to you if that's what you want to do.
Yeah, that's okay. I got a big box there. That'll fit.
Okay.
First, I'll spell it. It's the 1.7 at net0.net. The 1.7 at net0.net. That's THEONE.7. That's number 7 at net0.net. And also, when I'm telling people that buy the book, it's written on several levels of consciousness. So if you read the book 3 times, your life will never be the same. And after the 3rd time, I want you to contact me, because then you are ready for stage 2.
Okay. All right. And what's pre-birth memory? I mean, I know what it's entailing, but explain it a little bit.
Pre-birth memory is that's soul memory, so to speak. And the soul memory is also embedded into the bioelectromagnetic field, the substance or the cells of the bioelectromagnetic field. So that shows up in the cells of the physical body. So the pre-birth memory from all your lives are housed in the in a lifetime capsule. It's kind of like a small little capsule that in that bioelectromagnetic field is stored right above the crown chakra. It's stored up there. And you can access these individual lifetime capsules. And sometimes you can do it through hypnosis, or you can do it like, other people are able to do. They can go directly to a specific lifetime in meditation. But this is how every lifetime that you've gone through is the memory of it, all of the memory of it is stored in a in a time capsule. It's a little thing like just small. And you have access to it. But every lifetime you go through, you get these, and they're available to you, so you can draw on it. That is not the only place it is stored. It's also stored in the what some people call the Akashic Records, and that's that soup of creation that I was talking about. It is also there.
I was going to ask you about the Akashic Records.
Yeah. The Akashic Records holds all knowledge and memory of the physical, or the astral worlds, the spiritual worlds. Everything is stored there. See, every level of existence has its hall of records. We call them libraries here. And every higher vibratory level of existence has its hall of records. And everything, all of these are combined into the Akashic Records.
That's interesting. And you know, I'm going to say probably 2 people in my short career who dealt with that, and I'm still not so sure that they were actually getting into the Akashic Records. I mean, there's, how do we know? Like, I've had people tell me, well, your past life was this, but I mean, this is why I need to be able to do this myself, so that because I could trust me, right?
Yeah, you probably could. There are. Well, remember that elephant I was talking about?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. We see the elephant, and you reach out and touch the trunk on that thing, and you can see and taste, and you can smell just about the elephant, but it's not there. So depends on how far we have been brainwashed into believing things that isn't so.
You know, and that's true too. Like you can imagine things and think about things and literally manifest those smells, and
Yep.
it's amazing. And you know, we don't think too much of it. Like sometimes people say, "Oh, I smelled that cologne. It's the cologne my father always wore," and
Yep.
I wonder, is it a chemical balance in the brain that releases it, or is it that you're manifesting it somehow in your subconscious? You know, from the other side.
Yeah, it probably can be all of that. I would suggest more so probably that the memory of it releases the sensation of the smell.
I see. That's interesting. It is. So, okay, so another listener has asked what you see in our immediate future, I guess, meaning within the next year. Anything in particular that you'd be willing to share with us?
Well, there's a lot of people out there that say, oh, we're going to have the Third World War, we're going to have all kinds of economic collapse, and we're going to have people fill up those concentration camps that the government has built, you know, the FEMA camps.
Mm-hmm.
No, I don't see that. Not in the timeline where I am. Because, first of all, they are not going to do anything on the watch of the golden boy in the White House. They're going to, if anything is happening, it's going to be after the elections. But I don't see it, because I have been defining my future as much as I can, and I don't see it in my future here. So as long as we try to keep our vibrations high and stay with good thoughts and go into the future, create something in your mind, that something good that you want to happen, and go back and visit that creation every day. And then you lay down a tractor strings through it, and you could pull up that timeline to that good thing in the future and keep working on it while you do this. And my book is very good at explaining how to create that future like this, so you can walk into it.
Wouldn't we need a mass amount of people to be doing this, though, to direct the future? I mean, I've heard of projects where thousands of people will pray or think or whatever, concentrate on the same thing, and they make these things happen. So, I mean, so your future looks good, but, you know, what if everybody else doesn't see it that way? Then what happens? The timeline split?
It could very well do that. But if we all keep it the same way, in a good way like that, we are engaging the mastermind principle. And that is really, it's extremely powerful. That's when two or more minds are united in harmony, they create a third mind that has the potential mind power of the two or more of them multiplied by each other. Mm-hmm. If 1,000 people get together and think about something good for one purpose, and put emotion and love with it, 1,000 times 1,000 is 1,000,000 minds that is all concentrating on that thing. That's powerful.
Yeah, that is powerful.
That's what Art Bell did when he created Rain Over Texas 20 years ago.
That's true. I remember that. That's kind of what I was referring to. I was actually thinking of that when I was telling you about people getting together. So.
Yep. I was on the air. I was on the radio listening when he did that, and next day there was rain all over Texas, and the weather forecasters, they were dumbfounded. They said there was nothing in the computer models that showed moisture, so this could happen, but it did.
That is strange. That is strange. Almost like they had, he had the control levers of the weather or something, you know.
And he did.
Yeah. So, last but not least, karma. How real is karma? I think it's pretty real myself.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree, because karma is a form of justice. Because the universe always wants to be in balance. If you've done something that puts your reality or your existence out of balance, the universe will try to regain balance. And that turns out, if you've done something really nasty, yep, something nasty could happen in a totally different way, but it will create balance after a while.
Yeah.
That's what karma is, balance. When you do something really good for somebody without expecting anything in return, now you create imbalance again. You towards that person, and you will be rewarded back according to what your actions were. So yeah, there is karma and there is balance.
And I really believe that there really is karma. I don't know about, I guess for most people, I'm going to say most people feel this way, but when you do something nice and helpful for somebody else, and you could see the appreciation on their face, it really makes you feel really good. I mean, it's almost like a selfish act to be helpful to others, because what it does for you, it's like a drug. It's like shooting something up, I guess. I don't know. I've never done that, but
yeah, I know. That's a reward right there.
It really is. And then you've got people who are just rotten and nasty their entire lives. And I've seen some of these people live like longer than they should have. And so I guess they've lived miserable lives, and probably when they go on the other side, they're going to carry that misery with them. And those are probably the ones who do rotten hauntings.
Very likely, because they may not make it out of that lower astral world. They might get stuck there because they are so attached to what they have created. Usually, a lot of times these can be wealthy people that is horrible human beings, and they enjoy that. So they get stuck there, and because they enjoy being around all this negative feelings and vibration.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Augie, we're at the end. So if there's anything, and you got a few minutes, I mean, I'm not going to rush you off, but anything you'd like to get out there before we're done, by all means, go right ahead. And I thank you so much for joining us tonight. And I do wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, or whatever you celebrate. And I appreciate it.
And yeah, I will say the same to you. And what I will also say to people is contact me. Send me an email, or go to my blog at www.agi-nust.com and send me a message. There's a place on there where you can tell me what you think. And also on the blog, whatever people want me to write about, I'll do that. So send me a request of something that you want me to write about, and I'll do it.
All right, fantastic. And keep in touch. I mean, you're welcome to come on back on the show anytime. I enjoy talking with you.
Oh, yeah, this was fun. I had a blast. And you just let me know when you have a spot, and I'll be back, and we can talk some more.
All right, sounds good. Well, again, have a great rest of the 2015, and I'm sure the next time I talk to you, it'll be next year. So,
yeah.
All right.
I sure appreciate this, and I wish the listeners Merry Christmas. And if you're an atheist, I'm sorry for you.
Oh, I love it.
Okay. Not really, but it sounded good.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, we need somebody to be lurking around in those houses so we can call it haunted, right?
Yeah.
So let them do it. All right. Well, hey, and again, throw out your websites once more.
Yeah, that is www.spiritual-sciences.net. www.spiritual-sciences.net.
All right. Well, again, Augie, thank you so much. And until next time, be safe, my friend. My past and everything that's going to happen in my future is actually out there to be accessed if we knew how.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And there is methods to do that. And in fact, I'm not the only one that talk about that, but I have developed something that seems to work, and you can access the past. And another way that actually psychiatrists do by accessing the past is also hypnosis. they can do time regressions, and they take you back to an event, let's say when you were 11 days old, and you will explain exactly what you saw. So that's a form of time regression, but that comes out of your conscious memory, usually. A really good hypnotist is able to go beyond that and access things that you did not see but may have happened at the same time.
So yeah, that is a form of going back in time. I mean, it really is, because when you think about it, when we leave this, this physical body, I mean, we're still going to exist. So, it's, you don't have to bring your body to go places.
That's right. And the physical body, of course, that is this expression of the spark of life, or the soul, or the spiritual body, if you want. And when it comes to that physical existence around us, I got to lean on quantum physics a little bit, because they have proven that on the blackboard, their equations show that we live in a mind-created universe. And if it is mind-created, then it all depends on what is in the mind. And the universal mind expresses itself in the physical existence through our perceived mind. So what we have in our mind, that is what we are going to have in our existence and in our life. So the people that are total positive thinkers, they're going to have a little better life than the people that always think about crap and garbage all the time.
Well, that's horrible, because, I mean, it's true. I'm not arguing it, but that's horrible because, just about every day of my life I have to deal with the horrible stuff because of my job here. But however, I'll say this, when the show's over, I do my own things.
There you go.
I don't get stuck in it. But yeah, you're right. People who, I mean, I've been around people who are just miserable, and there's no good in anything with those people, and I can't be around them long.
Yeah, they kind of wear you out and they drain your energy.
They sure do. Now, if it's possible to access our future, then is that to say that our future is kind of etched in stone? Then it's prearranged.
Yeah, but let's look at the existence a little bit.
Okay.
Past, present, and future outside of the physical, in the higher spiritual realms, are sitting there at the same location at the same time. The present. I got my hand up.
Oh, yeah.
And the thing about it is that it is there. That decision you made, that bum decision you made, that could have been done different and things would have been better, it's still there. But because outside of the physical, it is sitting together with the past, present, and future, outside of space and time, in the same location at the same time, which is now. And there's no distance between the past and the present. So the mind can bridge those two, and you can go back in your mind, visualize that decision so you understand it. You have it in your mind, you understand the decision, and you accept it was the wrong one. And then go back to, let's say, a day before that or sometime before that, and visualize yourself in a position where you know the decision might be coming up, or if you don't know it, you are aware of that it will coming up, and then you decide that when that decision, time for decision comes, you will make a different decision than you did last time. And if you go back and visit this particular time, back and forth to it, you lay down a tractor string through that particular time and space in the physical. So that after a while, you could start being drawn to it. And you could, in fact, end up at that time and make the decision that is different than what you did last time. The thing about it is that if that happens, then the previous timeline that you were on, according to, there are two different schools of thought on it. One of them is that the previous timeline collapses and it never existed. And the other school of thought is that it continues on its own and you are totally unaware of it. So it is there, but your major consciousness is in the new timeline where you enjoy the new decision.
That's what I was going to ask you, is whether somebody would know that they're now on a new timeline. I would think that you wouldn't. Yeah. You're not supposed to probably know that, right?
And quantum physics can't really agree on this. And from what I saw, the timelines continue. So the old one is still there, but you are not aware of it. That's my take on it.
It would be interesting to be able to, well, then I guess that would be seeing into the future maybe, but it would be interesting to be able to see the different timelines and be able to see, well, what would happen if I did this? What would happen if I did that? And then thinking about going back and changing something that now you're right, we all have something in our past that I think that most of us think we would like to go back and change, but then think about it. If you did go back and change just one little thing in your past, would that change who, what, and where you are right now? It might, right?
Very likely would.
And it might not always be for the better.
That's the thing, see. We don't know because we're going to make a new...
This is Michael Vera with Late Night in the Midlands. How are you?
Well, hello there.
It is great to have you back on the show tonight. I'm looking forward to talking with you, and so I hope you're ready to go.
I am ready to go. Let me just turn off my cell phone so it doesn't ring on us while we're talking.
All right, sounds good. So, Aggie, I'm thinking let's start with a little bit of background. What got you? And I ask all my guests this because I like to know what got you so interested in consciousness and the paranormal and this whole topic, this whole other realm.
Well, I'm not really sure. I think it was something that was embedded in me when I was born. I don't know any other way why I should really have been gone after this so much, because I started as a young kid. You know, I devoured books about all the stuff that was outside of the box, paranormal, UFOs, and things like that. And when I was about 11, 12 years old, I built a small UFO detector that I made work, and I started messing around with things like that. And of course, you know, I grew up in Norway, so we were a little more free to think than probably many other countries in the world.
Sure.
So just because I was outside of the box so far, I wasn't really shunned and I wasn't talked down to because of that, so that kind of encouraged me a little bit.
Well, good.
And, yeah.
Oh, no, go ahead. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt. I'm just saying.
That's all right. That's all right. At the age of 25, I grew up on the farm there. By the age of 25, I left Norway and came to the United States and to go to flight school. And I was in the business world for 23 years, flying and running an aviation company and so on. And then I burned out, so I started doing other things. And I got into mind development and the paranormal and things like that. And it kind of grew on itself. So, gosh, here I am today.
So you say that you've been able to do direct mind-to-mind contact with the universal consciousness. So what is the universal consciousness, and just how does that go? How does that happen?
Well, I know that sounds ridiculous.
Not to me.
Mind, that kind of insinuates that it is two minds, but still there's only one, but there's two expressions of it. I may perceive that I have my own expression of that mind, but I am still part of the other, all-encompassing universal mind, or God, if you will. And having this direct contact and downloaded information is not unique to me. It's happened quite a few times throughout history where people get this flood of information. And, usually what happens is the same thing that happened to me where, I had this and I didn't know what to do with it, so I started writing, and I kept writing for about 3 days. And I looked at that, and it was so far absent. So there is no distance between the past and the future. There is no difference in time between the past and the future. Now that puts it pretty close between the two of them. So now the mind can bridge that bridge. And by accessing the past, it always seems to be a little easier, but normally people don't try to access the future. Psychics do, and some of them are better at it, but you can access the future also. But that is in that timeline where you are. There are different timelines reaching into the future, especially when you make major decisions.
Now, Augie, I've heard that before about the timelines. I've had people who have said that they've, like teleported and did these different things on different timelines, and it's not that I guess I kind of have a hard time, and I guess most people might, but wrapping your mind around, these different timelines, because sometimes it almost sounds like an excuse for some people. It's like, well, why didn't this or that happen? And they say, oh, well, I'm sorry, it was another timeline that had happened. But it is possible that somebody psychic or what have you could be reaching into the wrong timeline, right?
Yeah, and I know that sounds goofy, but they are actually on to something.
I see.
Because if you do as you have done before, your future is fairly predictable. And what is in the future will pretty much be based on what you are doing today and the predictable actions and decisions you will make in the future. But if you, let's say tomorrow, decide, nope, I'm going to do something totally different, and the decision is done today, and I'm going to go this direction instead of that direction, now you're starting a different timeline. And whatever otherwise would have been, that is in that quantum wave, goes off on its own in that timeline, and you start a new timeline where different things will happen. Many of the things will be the same, but the major decision that you made will take you off on a different path.
I see.
So if we look at that for just a little further, there are actually some scientific experiments that show we can go back in time and change the past. Now that one is hard to wrap our heads around.
It's actually a little easier for me to wrap my head around that one, because something that's already happened, I could see us being able to go back to it, I guess, but something that was not supposed to have happened yet, it's amazing that we can go to it. And again, I'm not disputing it. It's great. I'd love to go to the future and see what's going on. I think.
Oh, me too, yeah.
I think I would.
Yeah, there is some nice things in a lot of these timelines into the future. But let's look at the past a little bit. Most of us screwed up something in the past that is so bad we'd really like to go back and have a do-over, right? Out there that I knew, no, I can't even talk to people about this because they are going to think I'm nuts. And I talked to you about one guy, a level-headed fellow, well-educated, and he said, no, this makes sense. He says, go start studying quantum physics. There's a book at the library, and he told me the title of the book, and I went and read that book. The book's title is The Selfaware Universe. And it's a phenomenal book, actually. It's written with Amit Goswami. He's a PhD physicist. And he explained a lot of the things that I had seen and experienced he wasn't so much in detail of it all, but there it was. So now I figured, well, I could talk about it, and that led to this book that I wrote.
Mm-hmm. So self-aware, the universe being self-aware, that's that kind of goes along. I'm just saying. I mean, it kind of goes along with the way of that I have of thinking of like God and who God is. And I've always thought of God as the universe, you know, because it creates, it destroys, and I looked at us as like cells within that body. And so to say that it's self-aware, that kind of, you know, I don't know, it kind of supports my thinking a little bit, I think.
Absolutely. You got it. And the thing about this self-aware universe, that we are that self-aware universe also. We're just one part of it, one extension of it. And when we talk about, you know, people talk about God, and it's what I'm concerned and what I've seen is that is just another term for the same thing. And of course the word God, you know, that shows up the very first time I find it back in the Sumerian tablets, thousands and thousands of years before the Bible was even thought of. Yeah. The word God meant great leader. And of course that was given, you know, a different perception throughout the millennia. But this universal consciousness that is everywhere and every when. That's a new term, isn't it?
It is. I was just going to say everywhere, every when.
Yeah, because in the physical existence we have time and space. But outside of the physical, there is no time and space. The present, past, and the future is all there, sitting in that soup of creation, ready for us to interact with it. Well, actually, that's not totally true, because the lower astral worlds, they still have time and space, because that's where the ghosts, departed bodies, souls, they kind of hang around there, because they are also attached to the physical because of love and, you know, other attachments. And in the lower astral worlds, you still have time. But up and beyond that, there is no time. So the past and the present and the future is all now. So that's why I said every when, because it covers all time in the present.
Absolutely. Now, this is interesting. So then you're saying that basically everything that's happened in my